Okay, yeah, go for it.
All right, we are now recording.
Hi, everyone. What a privilege today to be with such an international audience. I mean, this is amazing and so much fun for me. During the last year and a bit, during the pandemic, it's been really tough for extroverts like me because I get my energy from other people. And I see some of you nodding. I do coaching as well as training, and I love working with teams and organizations. And even just the walk to the station in the morning kind of fills me with delight, you know, and I haven't been able to do that. I live just outside London in the United Kingdom. I'm really, really blessed to live in a part of the country called the Chilterns, which is Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire, just outside a major motorway called the M25, if that means anything to the people from Bristol and Manchester. And yes, I have an American accent. And let's say I've lived in the United Kingdom for a couple decades. I moved over here to work for an agency called Oven Digital as a technical architect 20 years ago. And that was 2001. So you know what happened then. It was, you know, the bubble burst, the first big boom that we had. It was tough times, but I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm from New Jersey originally, and I moved to San Francisco when I left uni. There's a British term. When I graduated from college, and drove across the United States with a friend of mine from school, and went to San Francisco for the lifestyle, and was supposed to be a writer, and ended up a software developer because I was in the right place at the right time, 1993. What an amazing experience it's been. And oh man, more people joining. Wow, Hamburg, Germany, Florida, Galway. All right, is there enough rain right now, guys? Man, it's been so wet. Oh, it's been so wet here the last 2 weeks. Yeah, Houston, Texas. I love Houston. Wonderful. Hey, Gianni from the UK. Fantastic. Sorry, I can't get enough. It's wonderful. Yeah, so I kind of started my career in technology in San Francisco, and then, you know, kind of continued that here in the UK 2 years ago. And 7 years ago, I decided to stop the high pressure, but very well paid work I was doing as a program manager and go into training and coaching. And I took a very strange route through that. You know, a lot of people go into agile coaching and they start working with teams at the process level, and then they get into mindset and they realize that, you know, maybe there's the stages of group development. So they started, you know, getting into the psychology and so on. I jumped ship and then went and did a master's degree in executive coaching. But I had to put the two things together. I had to put together executive coaching and tech. And so for the last few years, all of my work is about bringing those two things together. And I think that's reflected in my book. When the publisher asked me, who's this book for really? And I went, well, it could be for executive coaches who want to understand what business agility means and how to work with organizations to do that. Or it could be for agile coaches. And I still think it's for both audiences. So it is also a COVID baby. So I wrote it last year. Most of the work was done last year. And it's really an unagile process. It's as unagile as it gets. I'll never forget having a drink just before the pandemic hit last year with my friend Luca Manoodle, who's a great agile coach here in the UK. And we were talking about my book. And so he thought, well, I got nothing else to do now. The work has stopped. And he wrote a book and got it published months before I did, because he went through Lean Pub. So, you know, in a very agile way, and he's had a few versions of it already come out. But I still think there's something wonderful about getting a book published through a publisher and having them do all the work and the revisions and the quality checks. It's been an incredible process. I have some slides to show you. I promise not to slide you to death. I have a couple of interactive activities to do with you because I really want us to take away something tangible from this. And I suppose I've got to, as my friend from Manchester says, if I don't promote my book myself, then nobody else will. out of the people who endorsed my book, I selected these for this audience today because I thought you'd know about IC Agile. And boy, the day that Ahmed Sidki sent his endorsement of my book, I nearly burst into tears because he's doing amazing work. And then, of course, David Clutterbuck, who many of you know as a terrific academic who's done a lot of work to advance the practice of team coaching and systemic team coaching, and one of the big names in the executive coaching field. So I feel incredibly proud of that. What the session today is really about is about moving from agile as a collective noun, meaning all of the frameworks and processes and tools and approaches, toward agility, becoming agile. And to do that, we have to look much wider than just the team. Sometimes agile coaches will engage with the team, and it's all about shifting work from left to right, isn't it? And how can we reduce waste? And then, very often we start to run into some blockers. We would say probably, to the team that it's everybody else who's not agile and they need to update their mindset. And maybe we need our team leader and project managers, if you still have project managers, to be a little bit more like facilitative leaders. And so we start to recognize that leadership style plays a huge part in this, and the way we engage with suppliers and the way we write contracts. And maybe that project manager is a well-meaning person who maybe has a different reporting line to the team. And so now there's all kinds of organizational challenges and opportunities that we have that we need to address to really become agile. And I think that leaders and organizations want this, but they don't know where to start. So whether you identify as an executive coach or leadership coach, whatever title you're using, or an agile coach, I think this is important to everybody. And there are different ways to get started doing this. So when I say agility, I really mean business agility. And when I was doing my coach training, we had a guest tutor named Peter Hawkins, who has inspired me and others in many ways to even transform the practice of executive coaching into something that's more useful, that considers all of the business's stakeholders, not just the ones that buy shares and buy products. But to really be useful for the planet and society. And he's inspired me very much. This is the model he created, which is now owned by, it's the copyright of the AOEC, the Academy of Executive Coaching. And when I was writing my book, I submitted about 68,000 words to Open University Press. And when I got to about 50,000 words, I realized that I had done the work that I promised in my proposal to the publisher. I was writing everything to my outline, which is great. But as you know, as well as I know, that you start to do the work and things change, right? It evolves. As you do the work, you start to understand more about what you really need to do and what the work is really about. We know this as software developers. Boy, do we know it. And so I went back to the publisher, my editor, and I said, I've got to reorganize the book. She looked at it and she agreed in an instant. And I realized that there was nothing so far. It was a collection of great tools, but there was nothing that elevated it to another level. And that was when I thought, oh, Laura, of course, you need to have the 6 lenses as scaffolding. And so I didn't create the model, but I don't know of any other domain that has adopted it and implemented it in a specific domain. So what I'd like to do is, for the next few minutes, give you an introduction to the model. I'd like to give you some examples of things I've observed in my work with clients in the different lenses. And I'm not going to tell you which lens my example is for. I'm going to ask you to guess. So that's going to test our listening skills, coaches. And then I'm also going to give just a little teeny preview as to how I've addressed these lenses in my book. So, well, individual, interpersonal, team tasks, team relationships, stakeholder interfaces, and the wider systemic context are the lenses. The reason I think that this has value for business agility is because agile coaches are criticized for engaging at lens 3, team tasks. It's about processes. It's about, are they doing their retrospectives well? Can we help with facilitation? Is the sprint backlog a true sprint backlog that's created by the team, or is it just a bunch of ongoing tasks? Scrum shoehorned into waterfall. But all of these other lenses, these ways of seeing or ways for us to engage with the organization are also important, so that we see the whole organizational system, and also the forces of change from outside, lens 6. So let's have a little bit of fun with this. I'm going to keep my eyes on the chat, and I'd like to give you an example from my own experience. Here's one I prepared earlier. I definitely wrote these out. And so I'd like to now kind of cherry pick from my examples and ask you to think about which of the 6 lenses does this example relate to. I'm not going to be reading a lot. It's going to be relatively brief, so bear with me. So one example of some work that I did with a team was that I had the opportunity to observe several teams' sprint planning meetings, including a team of which my coachee, Brian, was a member. I had been asked initially to work with an individual on some performance issues, and then also got to observe Brian in a team where he was a business analyst. In the sprint planning meeting, they were really focused on planning work for the current sprint, but there was no clear sprint goal to help organize and focus the work for the next couple of weeks. They were running 2-week sprints. What I observed really is their project manager reading a list of items sequentially from a product backlog, and then asking for the next items of work to be assigned to team members, to individual team members, with a kind of a request for an on-the-spot discussion of the technical tasks that individuals would need to complete to work through the product backlog. So I wonder which of the lenses that you can see on the screen does that relate to? Go ahead and just put it in the chat. And it's not an exam, it's not a course. I'm interested to see which of the 6 lenses does that example relate to? Yeah, it's definitely 3, Asif. Yeah, good. Gianni, yeah. Peter, Aaron, lovely. Pauli, brilliant. Yeah, thank you guys. Yeah, it's 3. It's definitely 3. It's about team tasks and process. Absolutely. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, that's it, guys. Lovely, lovely. Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. So, when we stay on the process level, we might think to ourselves, well, they have a sprint planning meeting and it looks like they're creating some kind of to-do list for the next couple of weeks. That's something like a sprint backlog. But there's a number of things wrong with this, and I'm sure you started to identify already the very anti-agile behaviors in there. So what I did in the book was I wrote about empowered decision-making and the business benefits of that, and some tools that you can use to work with a team to turn that kind of command and control style of management into something where the team is empowered to select the work and decide how they're going to get it done, and to take collective ownership for the work. Also, learning capacity, the ability to say, well, we don't know exactly how we're going to get this done this time, but we're going to make a start, and we're going to have a way of working iteratively through the sprint to figure out how we're going to get that done, instead of covering ourselves up with emails and playing the blame game, and maybe I don't want to put my name on it and that kind of thing. Also, cross-functional teams, having cross-functional teams is super important in this lens. So I just wonder if we can kind of open up your mics a bit, and I would love to hear from you any examples of a time when you worked with a team that maybe needed a little bit of support here on Lens 3, team tasks and process. I don't know how you guys normally roll, Laurie, but I like to just shout it out. But if you want to do the old raise the hand or wave at me, if you want to say something, you're welcome to do that as well.
Yeah, most people just shout it out. So
Cool.
if anybody out there has an example that they'd like to share with Laura on challenges you've had with team tasks. Go ahead, Peter.
I have one. So I once worked with a team as a Scrum Master, where I joined as a Scrum Master to this existing team. And I found out that they were not using the sprint goals in Scrum at all, right? So their sprint plan would be focused on finishing item XYZ, but there would not be a nice, ambitious, interesting goal. So using the Scrum guide, I thought this was a problem, and I started introducing the sprint goals with great success for the team, actually. Right? They found a bit of focus. They found it easier to say no to distractions. It moved away from becoming a day job of finishing items towards actually more working towards interesting goals as a team. So yeah, I've had good results improving the clarity of purpose, basically, in this way.
Yeah, wonderful, Peter. Yeah, to me, that's what it's about. Good leadership translates organizational mission and objectives and the product vision into something that's actionable for the team. And so there's almost two halves to that, which is why I like the lenses, because it looks at the whole piece holistically. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And Wendy has an example too.
Let me start with a question first. Does the team here always mean Scrum team, or can it also mean a group of peers?
It has to be a team. When we talk about systemic team coaching, we're talking about a true team that is a group of people all working toward the same purpose with mutual accountability. Yeah. Now, the approach that I'm outlining was created for executive coaching, and broadly speaking, executive coaching is leaders and teams. Yeah. But what I've done is I've brought all of this into an agile context, because to me, this is really, really missing for achieving true agility across the organization. Yeah.
Yeah, we're in the process of implementing the OKR methodology with our product management organization. And so I was trying to see if I could translate team here to my product management team, right? And so how they are communicating, how they're working closely with the product owners and kind of identifying what those OKRs and working on them together, but really understanding what the general strategy is of what their purpose and what their hopes are, similar to like a sprint goal, but only obviously larger and more strategic and product goals.
So they're a leadership team, in fact. Yeah. So yeah, clearly they're not a team that makes things or produces things, but they still have to work in a joined up way that that brings to life the organization's mission and objectives, even if they're not in a delivery role.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still relevant. Absolutely. Yeah. Right. Good stuff. Yeah. Who else? Who else? All right. All right, cool. Let's give you another example. Lovely stuff. So the individual that I was asked to work with, whose real name is not Brian, by the way, he described some ways that other people in the organization viewed his role and the challenge that created for him. Specifically, that the purpose of a business analyst, which he was seen by his department as being quite different to his view of what was needed from the role to support the 2 or 3 teams that he was working with. He described a sense that other people didn't value his contributions as much as they should have, because he was actually doing work above and beyond what he was asked to do. But it was nevertheless work that he thought was needed. And through informal conversations, I learned that the staff reporting lines were really quite different among the project managers, business analysts, and technical roles, such as the testers, developers, and architects. Each organizational entity seemed to be working to different objectives. They were measured differently. And this created a bit of friction when now these people needed to come together as a team. Which of the lenses does that example relate to? Yeah, good, good. Oh yeah, guys, you're absolutely rocking it. Yeah, 5, maybe a little bit of 4. Yeah, it's a little bit of 4 and mainly 5. Yeah. Yeah, wonderful stuff. Nice one, guys. Yeah, it's a little bit of 4, but the real root cause is in the interfaces between the business units, that they're not aligned. Absolutely. So in my book, some of the agile approaches and behaviors from kind of from an organizational agility perspective that I picked out are focus on a single product, customer focus, which then creates alignment for everybody to do what they need to do in terms of delivering, to the value stream, as opposed to competing objectives created without the customer in mind. Also, understanding cross-silo leadership and how, and this is to Wendy's example of how the various business units now need to work together and be in alignment. And then awareness of the wider organizational system. And in my book, I've pulled together a whole bunch of coaching techniques from the agile world as well as the coaching psychology world to address those points, which I felt were important. Cool. This one is a little bit sticky. Hey, often we run into these kind of lens 5 issues and we think, okay, yeah, now we really run into trouble. What's worked for some of you when you've come across these types of issues before, where the root cause is really outside the team, and now we need to encourage alignment across different business units? Again, go ahead and shout it out or wave at us or raise your hand if you want to.
I'll go if no one else is going.
Yeah, cool. Hi, Neil.
So I find this a lot when you go into an organization. Maybe you start working with a team that is really trying to become agile or at least achieve agility, as we're saying here, but they're operating in a system where it's more of a traditional gated kind of change framework. And at every point of that change framework, you need to completely de-risk the next stage of your kind of project delivery, which basically means, you can't enter any period of time with any questions unanswered, or at least the aim is to try and close those answers down. And yeah, I guess coupled with that, you tend to have very kind of siloed departments where there's lots of handoffs. So there's lots of kind of, you do a chunk, then I do a chunk, then I'll pass over here for a chunk. So yeah, I'm kind of seeing that a lot, and I guess that's the bottom up transformation, I guess, as you could describe it.
Yeah, that's a great example, Gianni. And sorry, I called you Sunil earlier, but it's obviously Gianni. Sorry about that.
That's okay. I'll take anything.
Yeah, and that's a terrific example of that lens. Yeah, is a gated approach that gives people comfort that we thought of everything before continuing, which of course doesn't exist. Yeah. Terrific. How about another one?
I can share one.
Yeah.
I believe that I can resonate it very well what Chiani said, because that always happened, right? When any of the organizations I work with, at least a number of organizations which started with agile journey, right? And then there is always a confusion that, hey, this is product management stuff, right? This is business unit. Hey, this is still sales unit. This is still marketing unit. And this is data analytics SEO unit, right? And now they have confusion how to deal with these teams, so-called Scrum team, for example, right? And then they will put their representative over there, one from each department, and that become a team then, right? And every head will be calling their respective representative. Hey, can you get it done for me? Can you get it done for me? Can you get it done for me? Now for this, I will say we need to relate it back to our product vision, right? Product vision, product goal, and then tactical sprint goal, right? So which we always miss. So we still create silos by just having our silos discussions in our own department, so-called department, right? So what I tried is basically, hey guys, when you are doing all these meetings, so-called, right? Why we don't set up some events for these things so that everyone heard about these things, everyone have shared understanding that when you talk about SEO, what is your top priorities, right? What is your pain point as of now? If you're talking about sales stuff, if you're talking about some data analytics to bring into product, let's share it with team, right? And that slowly, of course, people were hesitating a lot. They don't be open. Of course, they can always say, yeah, we are open, we trust each other, but it takes a lot of time, right, to build that trust. So slowly, it coming again when we were asking question, hey, what are the challenges? And to be very honest, initially everyone say, hey, we are good, we are good, we are good. But every time I keep on repeating same thing. Hey guys, what are your pain points? And in one of the event, one guy came and said, hey, we are facing these challenges. And then discussion opened. We are facing this one. And then we created product backlog. So this is
Yeah.
how basically silos we need to bring it in one unit, right?
Yeah.
So-called cohesive
Wonderful.
teams.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And often people don't want to recognize those issues because it's a bit like climate change. You know, I'm doing my recycling, I'm, you know, walking more than driving. What else can I do? You know, it's just enormous sometimes. So I love, Sunil, how you as a coach said, I'm going to name it. And then other people were able.
Uh-oh, I think Laura just locked up.
And
Yeah, I was thinking it's only me. Ose is back.
Here she is. Hey, Laura, you're back. You froze for just a moment.
oh, did I freeze? Oh goodness, did my Wi-Fi cut out? I'm gonna blame it on the Atlantic Ocean or something. Absolutely.
Go ahead.
I was just
No
saying,
worries, Laura.
Sunil,
That
your
is what we
example was
love about
fantastic.
technologies, right? It enables us, but it gives surprise to us. That's
I
fine. Please
know.
carry
We can do quite a lot. You know, I mean, we've all got computers in our pockets now, but you know, I can't get a good Wi-Fi signal up in the office. I don't know why not. It's just seems, you know, I don't know, simple. But anyway, yeah, thank you. It was a terrific example. I love what you said there about how you were able to finally encourage the team to start naming the problems. Wonderful example. Thank you for that. And sorry that I cut out there a little bit. So I think perhaps one of my favorite lenses here is the wider systemic context, because actually, where does business change come from? And when we talk about changing requirements and you know, changing priorities of the work on the product backlog, the temptation is for the team to start to blame it on people, right? Oh, it's those people over there because they weren't organized enough, or you know, so and so has a little pet you know, feature that she wants to see. and so on. But actually, the change is almost always driven by competition, external market forces, regulation, changes in legislation, organizations concerned with being more environmentally and socially responsible, and then clearly changes in technology, advances in technology, which has caused most of the change from an external perspective over the last couple of decades. So I would love for us to do a little activity on that, on the lens 6 that I call the wider systemic context is what it's called. Thinking about PESTLE. Anyone know what this acronym PESTLE stands for? When we think about external change, we often think about different sources, and we use this acronym PESTLE. Yeah, go ahead, Rahul.
Yeah, it's political, environmental, social, technological, legal, and something else.
Yeah.
Environment.
Yeah. Environment, you said, didn't you? Or did you say?
I think I said environment.
I think you did too. Yeah. And so the second one is economic.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, really well done on that. Nice one.
Thanks.
Why is this important? Because it's a really handy way of remembering the sources of change. And organizations that are at the most risk of disruption due to any of these sources of change are companies like product companies, consumer product companies like Unilever, oil companies like Shell, travel industry is obviously disrupted massively due to the pandemic, but fossil fuels are going to be a thing of the past very soon. So, definitely some disruption there. So I like to use PESTLE and a technique called scenario thinking to help a team brainstorm the possible causes of disruption, and then kind of what to do about it. Starting to think about the future, possible futures, sort of 2 to 5 years into the future, and then working backwards, thinking about mitigating strategies for different possible futures that may or may not occur. The first step to this is doing some brainstorming around PESTLE. And that's what, oh, wonderful. Thank you, Michael from Cape Town. Yeah. So that's what I'd like to do with you first. I'd like to give you this scenario for an activity. And in a moment, I'll be setting up breakout rooms and inviting you to join one of those in order to start to brainstorm the likely systemic impacts of my fictional travel organization in the next 5 years. And so you may want to take a screenshot of this so that you have it with you in the breakout room, but I'll read the scenario to you anyway. The client organization in my fictitious example, not so fictitious example, operates in a very competitive market due to the cost of fuel and price fluctuations caused by availability of fuel, seasonal demand, and I wrote this before the pandemic really kicked in, and that's posing all kinds of challenges this year, which we couldn't predict. Also, lots and lots of competition, low cost entrants into the market over the last 10 years or so. This is really this is your VUCA environment, your volatile, uncertain, complex, et cetera. Really put senior management under pressure to deal with possible future outcomes. So the first step in doing this scenario thinking is the one we're going to do in our breakout rooms. And so what I'd like you to do, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to brainstorm in your small group some possible outcomes as a result of what we know now about the way the world is changing on a macro level. You know, thinking about the political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental aspects of the system. So an example is, you know, social, obviously that's health, that's the pandemic. Technological, ways that we buy and board aircraft and so on. Legal, environmental, political, and economic. You know, with climate change and trying to hit the 2030 climate targets, you know, something's going to change. So I'd love to hear what you guys come up with. I'm going to invite you to go into the breakout rooms just for 10 minutes to do a little brainstorm of this. And then when you come back, I'll invite you to put things into the chat. And let's just go ahead and spin up some breakout rooms. And how many are we? 37. So that's about 4 to 5 people per room. And then we're going to get you guys in for 10 minutes. So thinking about my travel organization and the possible systemic impacts to this organization in terms of pestle in your breakout rooms for 10 minutes. And then when you come back, we'll find out some of the examples that you came up with. And then I'll go ahead and I'll finish off my presentation of the scenario thinking activity that you can use with your clients. Questions before we head off? Cool. Thanks, guys.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks, Laura.
Not everybody wants to go to breakout rooms, so. And Lori, sometimes people pause the recording here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah,
I can do that.
Yeah, it's a good idea to pause it so that when people watch the playback, they don't. Yeah, wonderful. Welcome back. So I was just checking some of the questions in the chat while you were away in your breakout rooms doing that work. And Srinath had a question about, does organization and relationship systems coaching also look at lenses 4 and 5? I haven't done that training. Instead of that, I've done systemic team coaching, which really ticks that box from a relational coaching perspective. And I know a lot of people in the agile domain are grabbing that training as a way of doing systemic coaching, but that's not something that I've gone toward. I think that the approach that I'm using is fit for purpose, and I don't need another one. But that would be, an interesting, interesting question actually. Anyone who's done that training can help us answer that question. Does it address lenses 4 and 5 and 6? Okay, maybe you want to just put something in the chat if you have a few thoughts around that.
I mean, I think so, yes. I haven't gone through it, but I know several folks who have gone through the ORS training, and Bob Galen's blog does a really nice job describing each of it if you're looking for the high level overview. But that is exactly what it's about: systems, constellations, and the interaction of systems. And, any group is considered a system. So I think so.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Pauli. That's really helpful. Thank you. That's great. Cool. Okay, welcome back. I know everyone had 10 minutes. It's never long enough. So apologies if you were Zoomed and brought back in the main session before you had a chance to finish. I'm really interested in hearing some of the things that you came up with in terms of disruptors from the perspective of pestle. Things that, based on what you know now and some of the trends that you've seen in the travel industry, things that could disrupt this airline. What did you think for P, political? You can either use the chat or go ahead and shout it out. Either method works.
Yeah.
Political. Yeah.
On the political side, my group with MC Moore and Sunil, we thought that entry to countries has always been up for debate, right, with passports and whatnot. But now with COVID, there is a lot of opportunities for countries to revisit their policies and so on. And of course, what comes out of that would completely disrupt this airline, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The travel and entry rules on a country by country basis, which are often mixed up in politics. Yeah, and set by lawmakers. Yeah, so political. Yeah, wonderful stuff. War and conflict. Yeah, political affiliation. Wonderful, wonderful. How about some of the economic disruptors that you came up with when you were in your breakout rooms? What are some of the economic factors that could disrupt this airline in the next 5 years?
I can quickly go through. What we were talking is it was not only airline industries, but other industries also, because airline feed to other industries. For example, hospitalities, right? And likewise, for example, insurance. When we travel abroad, we go for insurance. So it is not only the airline industry, but travel has disrupted other industry also economically.
Yeah, it's also been a disruptor for other industries as well, about the movement of people and where people can work. God, that's terrific. Yeah. I'm just looking at the time, and sadly, I think we're going to run out of time before we get to all of them. So I'm just going to cherry pick, and actually, I think I'd like to pick environmental, because there's been so much in the news lately about hitting climate change and carbon reduction targets. Did anyone come up with anything? Yeah, fuel costs and taxes and new taxes related to hitting those carbon reduction taxes. Yeah, green taxes. Wonderful. Anything else on the environmental aspect? Yeah. So what we would do next with this material is start to look at what these different disruptors have in common, and start to then summarize them into possible outcomes for our business over the next 5 years. And then starting with the possible outcomes, the possible kind of endpoints in 5 years' time, now work backwards to start to build mitigating scenarios for a future that may or may not happen. If the fuel was so expensive that we had to convert our planes to have half business class and half coach passengers, in order that, the price point was higher per ticket on an airline, then what would we need to do to get there? For example, how would we need to present air travel? How would consumers' image of air travel need to change in order that we could charge more per ticket? So it's about imagining a future that may or may not happen based on what we know in the present and the trends that we've seen. And for me, I know it sounds a little obvious. I'm sorry if I'm teaching you guys to suck eggs, but this is so much about being informed by current trends. I find myself reading 3 different newspapers and subscribing to great newsletters. And on a Friday, I look forward to the World Economic Forum's newsletter, because they pull news from all over the world, and it's really just outstanding. So it's a little bit about observing trends, but then it's also about brainstorming, how we're going to deal with these possible futures. So for those of you who are working with leadership teams, and there was at least one of you, and thank you for your question earlier, that is a terrific one to do as a facilitated workshop. I hope you find that useful. Now, I wonder what other questions you have about the 6 lenses, and about really anything we did over the last hour. I think that the time went so quickly for me. I don't know about you. But just, I hope that we have a couple of minutes for any questions and anything else that you wanted to say or comment on.
Yeah, well, I would have a question then.
Yeah.
So for every area in the 6 lenses, are there, of which I am only familiar since today, so thanks for that. So my questions might be newbie, but are there any favorite responses or approaches that come once you identify the lens where you are coaching for?
Oh, favorite techniques. You mean the ones I use over and over and over again? Yeah, do you know what I did when I did my master's in coaching? I was able to do a research paper and original research for my dissertation. And it's again, it's not going to come as any surprise, but it's nice to have the data and the original research that the #1 success factor for business agility is a great relationship between your product people and the people doing the work. That when the product purpose, the organization's objectives, and how we're measured, and customers and competition, when that's translated appropriately for the team, when you have a great product owner, basically, then the team can be super successful and move quickly. It's stuff that team coaches have known for years about the importance of understanding the purpose of why we're here. And then we don't need to ask for permission. We can move quickly. And that's where the speed comes from. All of these things. So that's #1. And the traditional team coaches look at this stuff and they go, yeah, we've been banging on about that for years. But perhaps, under the Agile brand, that, perhaps this, material and these techniques are getting a second look and maybe becoming more important and more urgent. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. I really wish we had more time to hang out together. This has been a lot of fun, and I hope it's been worthwhile for you. You're very welcome to find me on LinkedIn and stay in touch. And of course, have a look for my book. I've even brushed up on my programming skills and created a landing page for it. So you're welcome to head over to my business website and see some more of the testimonials there. And then there's a link there to go ahead and buy the book from Amazon. It's not published until the 8th of June. I'm so excited because it's been a long time coming, but you can go ahead and pre-order it and then get it in early June. Thank you so much for inviting me today to be here. It's really been a lot of fun. Thank you.
Laura, it has been such a pleasure to have you today. Thank you so much for all of your insight and the fun exercises. Just want to remind everybody that this recording will be published on the Coaching Agile Journeys website. And don't forget to sign up for our next talk. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Go well. Have a nice day and evening, wherever you are.
Bye-bye.